And the lesson today, we're dealing with um, the Messel pits, and we're going to review a little bit about the Cenozoic. Uh, Cenozoic was the last 65 million years after the meteor that came in and created the end of the Cretaceous period and started the Cenozoic. So you had a huge extinction, and um, I'm just talking about the what yesterday's lesson was on the Cenozoic. And the early Cenozoic, Earth was really warm during that period, 13, 14 degrees warmer than it is today. So 73 degrees versus 60 degrees. Today's average temperature is about 60 degrees. Back at the beginning of the Cenozoic, 73 degrees was the average temperature. So large reptiles started to do well again. They didn't get to the size of the Jurassic dinosaurs, the Triassic dinosaurs got, but there were large turtles, like a 9-foot turtle. There was a 42-foot snake, boa constrictor, titanoboa. They had pretty unusual names. And then you got into the middle of the Eocene, Miocene epochs, and Earth was starting to cool. Earth began to cool, and some of these larger reptiles disappeared during these epochs. The mammals did pretty well during this period. But then the Earth as you got closer to the Quaternary, the last 1.2 million years, the Quaternary, the Earth got even colder, went into a series of ice ages. I'd always been under the impression there was a whole series of them, but I read that was, 7, 8 different ice ages occurred during this 2 million years. And the mammals that did well were larger. The mammals we have in existence today, things like polar bears did well. Any type of bear did well. Something that could hibernate for long periods of time. Animals like gazelles that could eat the grasses. Grasses evolved prior to the Quaternary, but in the last 20 million years, the large forests that existed, especially say in North America, disappeared, and you had grasslands take over. Animals that could take advantage of that grass did really well. Animals with the rumens in the extra stomach that could digest the grasses. And so all over the world, animals that had these unusual stomachs that could eat the grass and derive energy from it did really well. And you think about it, there's many different species that exist today. So that was kind of what we were talking about yesterday, kind of the big picture items of the Cenozoic. We really didn't talk much about the plants of the Cenozoic, but we did discuss the animals. So what we're kind of focusing on today is these pits that exist in Germany. And this slide right here kind of shows the what happened with these ancient pits. And the one on the left here, what it was that you had a kind of some volcanic activity beneath this pit, and what would happen is there would be some type of molten earth that would interact with some type of carbon that would have existed in the early pit, and it would produce gases, carbon dioxide, silicon oxide, sulfur oxide, not silicon oxide, sulfur oxide. And animals that existed around the pit when this cloud of CO2 would come up would be suffocated and they would die. And they would fall into the lake that existed, fall to the bottom, and the lake was really deep and it had all this kind of CO2 at the bottom. And so animals really couldn't get down there to eat them or to scavenge them. And so, again, low oxygen environment, they were preserved. And certain microbes would consume the flesh and things like that. But the bones and the kind of hair and items that weren't digestible by the microbes, the anaerobic micro things that didn't need oxygen, they would just kind of, these bones would be preserved. And over time, sediment filled in on top of these fossils. And over millions of years, these fossils, this Messel pit was created in the kind of earlyish part of the Cenozoic, but around 40 million years, 47 or 40 to 50 million years ago, was created, and they were preserved. Flash forward to modern times, and this pit was mined because the bacteria and the different converted into oil and that this was needed by Germany. So starting in the late 19th century was mined, and the oils were used for different fossil fuels. After time, it was no longer profitable, and German government tried to find uses for the property, but then eventually amateur paleontologists came in and they began to find these different fossils. And so here are some of them. This is a pygmy horse that very well preserved. You can kind of see the outline of the animal's kind of hair, and some of these different fossils had what they ate. Just kind of a really neat preservation, and it kind of showed. You can look at the toes of the pygmy horse, and you can see how there's 3 toes. We all know horses have hooves. They don't have. This is before they evolved the hoof, but it's in this process of developing the hoof that these little pygmy horses had these little toes. This is some type of lemur slash ancient monkey. You can kind of see the limbs, or the feet, or kind of having like an opposable thumb that can be used to grab onto trees. Has the long tail, but it doesn't look like anything that exists today. But and again, also you can see the outline. You can see what its skin looked like. There's like a very distinct dark area where its body was existed. So you could see what it actually looked like, what the animal actually looked like. Here's an ancient, the oldest python skeleton. Kind of very large looking snake. Here's an ancient bat. Bats are the only flying mammal, and they figured out they had echolocation a lot earlier than what they had thought, based upon these skeletons. But just these really well preserved fossils that exist in these pits, and I should be able to answer any questions that you have on the Messel pits that existed in Germany. It just kind of shows the evolution of different animals during the Cenozoic epoch, or era. Here's another mammal, kind of the back half of it, showing its tail and the hair, but just incredible amount of preservation of these different animals, some type of early mammal that existed on Earth 40 to 50 million years ago. But that is everything for this presentation. Hopefully you're able to answer some questions there.